Okay, looks like we're on. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Morita Clancy, co-host of the Biotensegri Tea Party, and I am delighted to be here with Susan Lowell de Solorzano. Go ahead, Susan. Hi.
Everyone, coming to you from the little colony of Washington, D.C.
And my other co-host, Graham Scarr. Hi, Graham.
Hello, Chris. Graham Scarr from Robin Hood Country in Nottingham, the UK.
And I'm coming to you from just outside of Vancouver on Coast Salish territory in Canada. And the Biotensegri Tea Party is an all-volunteer event sponsored by the Stephen M. Levin Biotensegrity Archive. Steve's here. Hi, Steve. And we are always accepting donations. I'm sure that Susan or somebody will put a link in the chat for you. Today, I am delighted to be welcoming Fabiana Silva. Fabiana is the president of the International Fascia Research Society. Hi, Fabiana.
Hi, everyone. I'm from Brazil. I'm in the south of Brazil right now.
Thanks, Fabiana. We're going to give Fabiana and our other guest, Tina Wang, who is the vice president of the FRS. Hi, Tina. We're going to give them an opportunity to give a little bit more details about themselves soon. Okay, and my friend and colleague, Bruna Petito, who's here to co-host today as our guest co-host. Hi, Bruna.
Hello, honored to be here.
So as always, we like to begin our tea parties with a toast. And today we would like to welcome up Fabiana to give our opening toast.
Oh, thank you. I have here a mug with a biotensegrity image that a friend made for me. And I ask you to raise our glasses or mugs or etc.
Hold on, I'm going to spotlight you so everybody can see your mug.
Thank you. Look.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And let's raise and make a toast for these two fascinating worlds that are the fascia and the biotensegrity that are here together today.
Cheers.
Right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks, Fabiana. Now, Fabiana and Tina and Susan and Bruna and I had the opportunity to get together, I'd say at least a month ago. And we were very excited about what's coming up. Now, as many of you know, or perhaps you don't know, the International Fascia Research Congress is coming up in New Orleans this August. And I know from our conversation that we've got some exciting things happening. Fabiana's already referred to them, and that is the coming together of these different communities. Very exciting. Our conversation will, I'm sure, bring lots more details on that. But to begin, I would like to ask each of you for a bird's eye view. So I'm wondering, how did you first find your way into the fascia world, and how did biotensegrity enter the picture for you? Now, Fabiana, did you want to start?
Yes, I'm a physiotherapist since 2001. And my journey started with the fascia world through my clinical curiosity and my desire to understand the body beyond the traditional compartmentalized point of view, like livers and other way that just look for the place that people have pain and not looking for the whole scenario, not looking for the person in a holistic way. And with this, I started to read about biotensegrity and learn and try to understand a little bit. I don't know if I understand too much right now, but and I went to Canada in a Biotensegrity event, and I met Dr. Steven and more people from the community. And so it's why I'm here today to put those things together a little bit more.
Thanks, Fabiana. And Tina.
Yeah, I similarly started this journey trying to understand myofascial pain syndromes, especially as a PM&R doc, and treating this day in, day out. And also from the perspective of a performing arts medicine specialist in movement patterns, restrictions, injuries. And I often tell this story. I follow every patient, so it's a little maddening. But I started in training, I would follow every patient and look at outcomes. So I know what my outcomes are. And I laugh when people tell me their outcomes are like 80, 90%, their patients get better. Then I laugh because then they've found the solution to myofascial pain syndromes and dysfunctional movement patterns. And it is because of the poor outcomes from allopathic medicine and the tools we have that really led me into investigating all sorts of avenues, and which eventually led me over the years to the study of fascia, where I really feel the solutions. There are many possibilities for solutions, not the only one, but it's very rich and unexplored. And as you in the allopathic world start to enter into discussions of fascia, you cannot avoid discussions of biotensegrity. It's interwoven. And so over the years, that's how I've landed into this, this field of fascia research, and then really understanding the nuance, not understanding, knowing that there are nuances to biotensegrity that I do not even have a clue as to where to begin. And so I usually nod my head and smile when non-experts start to try to explain biotensegrity, knowing that they have no idea what they're talking about. And that's also why I'm here today, to also learn from everyone here.
Thanks, Tina. Yeah, that's something. I mean, I've been in this field for a while, and I often come across this sort of roller coaster of feeling like, oh, I know nothing, and then feeling this, having this insight and feeling all excited, and then realizing, oh, I know nothing. So it's very much a roller coaster. But the other thing that's really coming up is this drive towards looking for something that is more integrated, more holistic, a more system science approach than what we've traditionally had in allopathic medicine. Before we move on, Bruna, how about you give us a bird's eye view of your history? Now, I know I'm familiar with it. I'm not sure if all of our audience is.
Yeah, I'm a PT, but before I start to study the body in this field, I was movement educator and a somatic educator. And for me, it was something always like I understand the body as a whole, but in the science, with my studies, is always like in parts. And when I found the science of fascia in 2007, maybe, for me was, whoa, maybe now I can start to get what is this magic and black box of the body. But always was something for me was missing when I studied fascia, because I was looking for a lens, something who give me the understanding of the wholeness and how to bring the concepts to apply in the body and the movement. So when I found biotensegrity was in the pandemic, was something like, oh, now I get it, how I'm going to use all the science of fascia to integrate in my practice and my clients in movement, in touch. So for me, I think the whole idea to bring the understanding and the lens of biotensegrity helped me a lot to read an article about fascia or see the body and understand how I'm going to apply this understanding of wholeness in my practice.
Great, thanks. And I know you're going to be giving a presentation on your paper at the Congress.
Yeah.
But I think you've got a question for.
Yeah. I usually like to know, was there a moment or experience or someone who helped understand biotensegrity or give a click to start knowing and get in touch with biotensegrity? Can be Fabiana or Tina.
For me, it was the Steven. Yeah, I started to read, and it's why I jumped in the event in Vancouver. And after we invited him to participate in the World Congress of Fascia Online that I organized here from Brazil. And when I met with Mariana Barreto in Montreal, we talked a lot and was amazing. And the work from Mariana, and I participate sometimes here in this Biotensegrity Tea Party as just listen, and that's it. And I think that in my perspective, I'm trying to put the things together, and it's not, for me, it's not easy because from the university and when we read books, the traditional books from physiotherapy, we have a look of the body in a different way, and working with fascia changed my mind, and starting to learn about biotensegrity changed my mind too.
Very nice. Fabiana, I have something that I always do. When I read an article, I first read an article like in the integrative, read all the information, and then I try to change the language to understand in biotensegrity lens. And it is very impressive how we can use some ideas to put a concept. So when we were talking, for me was, oh, I do that all the time. I read the first time and okay, I'm gonna reread, and now I'm gonna change the language because I think makes difference to understand the body. Very nice.
Yeah.
I think for me, I don't have such a clear answer. I do a lot of reading and then listening and then realizing I don't know if my understanding was actually correct. And it seems to be this lived experience consistently. The one thing that is for sure is the interconnected nature of everything. And how and what are the principles, what are the concepts, and that just seems to always be in flux. And so I always say, and you know, of course, it's reading everybody's work and trying to digest that. But as a I'm a serious yoga practitioner. So my teacher calls it the science of experience. So there's this frontal lobe knowing or thinking you understand. And then there's the application and the experience in your own body and someone else's body or reactions around you that really, I wouldn't say, sometimes it does help you understand. Sometimes you really have to grapple and digest before you realize what are misperceptions and what are true, clear understandings. And so that's kind of where I live, not just with biotensegrity, but with everything in life as well. Strong opinions loosely held.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. It's this constant dance that I think all of the people in this community experience between the kinesthetic, the embodied, the somatic experience of, what did she call it? The science of
Experience.
the science of experience, and then there's the intellectual, the side, and it is a constant dance. And some of us prefer one side, some of us prefer the other, but it's when we can shift between them. And I'm thinking of Jaap van der Wal's lemniscape and polarities, that in this play is where and when something new emerges. And to me, that's one of the most exciting things that I see happening through the FRS and the conversations that we've had, is this intention, this effort, this energy and vision going towards dancing that dance. And that's very exciting. And I'm sure it feels vulnerable at times too, because there is a letting go that has to happen in order to truly be there, in order for new things to emerge. So yeah, it's really wonderful, the work you are doing. So next, I'd like to move on to the interface between biotensegrity world and the fascia world. Now, the only other, I will be coming to New Orleans this August. Very excited to be giving a workshop with Bruna there. And there's more that I'm going to ask you about, or Bruna will ask you about in a little while. In 2015, I went to the Congress in Washington, D.C. That was where I met my mentors, Susan and Graham and Steve and Carol Davis for the first time, and these people who are very important in my life. It was very exciting for us in the community. Steve was given an award, for a special award for his contributions to the science. Jean-Claude Guimberteau had that amazing evening where he was presenting his movie. Can't remember the name of it, but with the endoscopic images and films, and he talked about biotensegrity. Biotensegrity was the only hypothesis that could really explain what he saw. Jaap van der Wal, I remember the room that he was in. Were either of you in that room, or any of you in that room, where more and more and more people were coming in? Eventually, I think there were people standing all over the place. And also Jaap talked about biotensegrity, as did Sergio Krakovetsky. So wow, these things are happening. There is this interface. So I'm wondering from each of you, maybe we'll start with Tina this time, wondering, in your view, what's the most important, the most transformative insight that biotensegrity, or the way that you understand it right now, brings to the fascia world? And I want to be clear about that. None of us, even those of us who have been steeped in biotensegrity, none of us feel like we've got it. There's always this play. So, we welcome you to bring up your understanding. So Tina, what do you think is the most important, the most transformative insight?
Just what a beautiful question, and how you framed it. It captures what FRS is trying to do. It captures this integrative whole. so that we have all these separate aspects. We have the bone, the organ, the spleen, the kidney, and they all seem to be at war with each other on the surface. And that's what we see our role for FRS and our individual role as board members is how do we contribute to this whole so that in this what seems like oppositions that a whole can arise because the whole does exist and that is part of our biggest role as FRS is to make sure that we see the whole and the tensional structures that arise and make that happen, make the magic happen. And that's a tall task. And I don't know if we'll make it happen, but we are striving to.
And it is a tall task. And yet, in my humble opinion, and I could be wrong here, but I live my life feeling like the wholeness is where we have emerged from, where we were, and that the tendency of our society to go into parts is our own ignorance. And that, of course, I also have a background in yoga. So thank you. I'm yeah, it's important. Fabiana?
Yeah, for me, it's quite similar with Tina, my knowledge or my thinking, but highlights how tension is distributed through fascia, and that influences not only mechanical stability but also the cellular signaling, the dynamic of fluids in our body, neurological function, and so on, and like facilitate to us to think in the human body, and not just the human, but in animals too, and other non-vivo structures, but thinking in a unified framework to understand healthy movement, pathology, and etc. And the idea is to push the fascia research to more, not just anatomy layers and etc., but thinking in systems with a biological perspective. And for this, we need collaboration, interdisciplinary collaboration, to try to understand this whole connection and how this connection can bring us to a better movement, better performance, or to spend not too much energy for movement or for recovery. And the idea is to facilitate for people to have a better healthy, and bring these two knowledges can help us through the research together to understand this. This is my point.
And I wonder, well, I feel too that what's happening in the community can mirror what's happening in our understanding of the body, with the integration happening in, as you say, a systems approach, but may choose to focus in on the tension compression in the body and that interplay, those relationships, and at the same time the collaboration between different fields, and you know, on all scales, like Steve often says, what is true on one scale is reflected on all scales.
Yeah. And it's not easy for me. I will talk for me, but it's not easy to put this knowledge into research in an isolated manner, because to understand the human body, We need to have this perspective from the human body, but also from statistics, mathematics, and other disciplines that can help us to understand this concept of biointegrity through this lens of the human body.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I have to confess, I live in a little biotensegrity bubble. My own passion project is embodied biotensegrity and the biotensegrity trailblazers. And I get to speak with people who are already really embracing this way of being and thinking and relating. And it's a real pleasure. And I understand from talking with many other people that it's not so, what's quote unquote normal for me isn't necessarily typical out there in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll find that out as I meet more people in New Orleans. Bruna, do you have anything you want to add to this before we move on? Or
Um, it is every time I talk about how biotensegrity came into my life, I feel like I have a transformation not only in the fascia field and the fascia world, but also in my life. And because I have the feeling that I see the world in different perspectives, and I get more in contact with another things that I never had a chance to do. But talking about fascia, for me, the transformation was start to understand or try to understand the behavior of the system and how the knowledge of the body changes the way we think about in the system, tissue, or the wholeness. So in the beginning of my fascia studies, I was very interested in the connection of the thoracolumbar fascia and the difference between the superficial and and I try to understand the parts. And when biotensegrity came to me, have the idea to try to understand the behavior of the system. And I think the relationship between tension and compression and how this forces get the opportunity to understand, and also to have more ways to talk about, and also to treat a patient, for me was very, very impressive. And it is not only in my knowledge, understanding, but I feel a lot of difference in my patients and the people who are with me. So I think was the most, and I keep getting this feeling of I don't know anything, but I feel with desire to understand every time I read something. I talked to Graham before we start. He gave us an article, we had the opportunity to talk about, Nunu, Chris, and and I read this same article, I think 10 times already. And every time I read, I go back to my body and I think about the system and I draw, and I get the necessity to go again. And all the time I feel like there is more than I can understand. And then, okay, now I get to step back and digest everything, because it is a lot of to process. So it is good to have this feeling that we always have something to emerge and steady.
Yeah, and this knowledge about the complex system, because I learned at the university and etc. I look at the body as a linear system, and the shift was when I started to think in a complex system, the organization of the body through the biotensegrity lens. And one thing that is interesting is that we can do an input. We will have an interaction between the parts and the environment, the person, and etc. And we will have an output. And we will have an output that we are not expecting. And this is really interesting because when we work with patients, with people that have pain, that have problems with movements, they wanna the output that, oh, I will have less pain, I will have a better movement, and etc. But we can't guarantee this, and this is really interesting.
Yeah, there is something like step back and understand that
Mhm.
we have tools, knowledge, and understanding, but there is a lot of things that can change the treatment. And I love to talk with the PT group that we have, because every time is understanding how we are going to understand our character in this role and give the opportunity to build a relationship and understand that we have tools, but there is a lot of things that emerge when we have this this beginning of something.
Yeah. And we can have two people with low back pain, for example. And the reasons why these two people have pain, they can be completely different. And we can apply for a lot of injuries, a lot of complaints that people have because of, in my reasoning is, it's because it's like in this complex system we will have different amount of different parts putting together and working together for the result, as we can say. And so it's why doing things and thinking not to do a protocol of treatment, but to personalize the treatment and putting all the pieces together in a complex system point of view.
Yeah. There is, when I see my treatment with patients today, I see how apply integrity give me the opportunity to step back from the problem and try to understand the person who is in front of me. And there is something I always try to do, because I was a dancer, so for me it's always about, in my first idea, about symmetry and how the body needs to be like in one ideal shape. And biotensegrity give me the opportunity to try to understand the relationship about forces. So I try to step back from what I'm trying to see as a problem, and I start to think about how can I manage this relationship between forces to give the opportunity of the body self-organize. And it is the feeling for us, I think it is very good. And also how the body find a way to dynamic self-distribute. It is very impressive. So I think it is a lot of changes in the point of view.
And Bruna, so shall we move on? Do you have the next question for us?
Yeah. When we are in the community, we are always talking about what are our big questions about biotensegrity, and we have so many all the time, even though we are in this process of trying to understand and get it and learn and change the view. So my question is, what are the big questions about biotensegrity do you have? So what you want, when you think about biotensegrity, what we want to clarify or integrate or understand or talk more about it? I don't know. Fabi, do you want to start?
Yeah. I think that with my more academic point of view, like always reading research with a RCTs and work with patient clinical research and etc. How we can translate this knowledge to the clinical point of view. Jumping from the research to the clinical, based on science, or based on not, it's not that our perspective, our impression, it's not valid. It is, and the qualitative studies are too, but try to translate this more hard research to a clinical point of view. This is because we usually saw in theory this complex system working together, etc., but we don't see in clinical research. We don't see in a more practical point of view. It is what it is, or it is what we think what it is. And so this is one question that I have.
Can I just jump in and I say this is a question that we all have. The reason why I want to jump in is I know there are lots of people in the audience here. You may have similar questions. You might have responses to these topics that Fabiana and Tina bring up, their questions. If you want to add those to the chat, when we get to our Q&A, would like to have time to call you up. And also, Susan, maybe if you can keep track of all of those for us. Okay. Go ahead, Tina. Do you need Bruna to talk about the question again, or are you good to go?
I'm taking notes. That's why you see me looking away. I'm taking notes. My questions are a little bit more what's the best word for they're a little bit less embodied. It's more about what is the embodiment of this experience. And specifically, every time I read and experience this and treat a patient or experience my path through the world, my question is, what is the original source of the tension and compression? So you can tell me, yes, there's these different elements, and I study Ayurveda, and Ayurveda talks about our individual makeups and how then the balance and the tension and the compression has to be when we intervene, or even in the individual as they experience the world, has to be specific to their unique makeup. And my question is, what is the source of that? Not the individual elements, but how do we arrive with this perfect system or this unperfect system, or however it is? What is the original source?
Good. Gonna go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I was just typing into the chat because it's a great question, and I wanted to have a record of it so that we can get back to it. Hopefully, we'll get Steve and other people to respond to that. So let's move on to the International Fascia Research Congress in New Orleans. It's just 2 months away. And as I was referring to earlier, we got to have a little chat also together with Susan about some of the things that are coming up. And in particular, a very exciting biotensegrity focused event is on the schedule. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about what's in store for the Fascia Research Congress and Biotensegrity together. Whoever wants to go can just unmute and share their thoughts, their answers.
We are really excited with this opportunity to bring the colleagues, the people that are working with the biointegrity community to share their knowledge, to share their opinion, their thoughts about the pathways that we can moving forward after the congresses. But the intention is to have a special interest group meeting in biotensegrity at the FRC in New Orleans, so we can start to plan and discuss future about collaboration, about webinars, about workshops, about actions that we can do, and for research too, to offer for both communities, the fascial and biotensegrity community and the others that are interested, a, a place to discuss, to change about the change experience, about the knowledge, to support initiatives of research. And so the intention of the Fascia Research Society with this initiative is to collaborate, to like fascia and like tension and compression and connection, but people working together and really collaborate for, as somebody says, we are need to look in a different perspective, not to cure, to heal somebody, but looking for the pain and etc. in a different perspective. So working together is a good way to have this, because the scenario today for those who works with patients is that if the person have pain, they need relief, they need to be healed. The system of health insurance, the access to practitioners and etc. Pressures have a pressure for this. So discuss, work in a different perspective, having a different perspective to manage pain situations and problems together. It's a good way to start. So it's why we are really happy that you are open to be there with us. And for me, I started in the Fascia Research Congress in 2018. And in 2022, I had more contact with people from the biotensegrity community. And I, as a president now, I think that why not give them more space, not give them a warm welcome to be with us. That was our intention with the creating of this special interest group.
Thank you. Tina, do you have anything to add?
Yes, I do. I'm just reflecting on how Fabiana and I are just so synergistically in opposition and yet working together.
Hmm.
And I don't mean in terms of differences in ideas, but like scales and application and practicality. So I'm co-chair of the scientific programming or conference programming with Kira DeConnick. And so she is a PhD, I'm an MD, and our minds are very concrete. And then we have to work with Jofi and Fabiana on these other elements that are not scientific, and we have to constantly be in balance. So where we can be quite, I would not say compressive or tensional, we're quite reductionist and pressurized. We then have to balance with the whole of the programming, right? So I joke if the program were up to me and my allopathic brain, then we would sit there from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and there would be no breaks. If you take a break, it's on you. And I have to balance these tendencies with the whole. That's not how I operate in real life. But if I were really to take a reductionist approach and take my roles very seriously with the scientific programming, one could imagine that it would look like that. And I spent much of my life like that, going through medical school and training. And that's not the approach that we've taken. It's really looking at these individual elements, these groups that we know of, these people who have gravitated towards each other, and how do we bring all of those groups together?
Mhm.
So this interest group is not just for people interested in biotensegrity. It is also for people who want to come explore and want to bring in their elements and bring and relate to this group and bring out those elements and collaborate and create something new so that the whole can exist together. And so that is what we or I have in mind as people bring in ideas and we try to find space in the programming, is really thinking about the existence of the whole and how to the relationship, the give and shift that has to happen to make something happen in the program. And Fabiana will tell you, I am not very pleasant to deal with when they make a request schedule. And it's because of this process that it's not just I'm going to shift something else, put something else. I'm looking at the whole and the experience of what can we do. And some amazing magic has happened because of that.
It's beautiful and much needed. It's a whole, well, it's not surprising really. The fascia field itself is breaking open locked doors of the past, as is biotensegrity, as is the way that you're setting this up, and the really hierarchical spaces that you're cultivating. And there is also going to be a special interest group for the manual therapists and the movement folks as therapists as well, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which again is these layers and layers, this complex system of of the community. And you've already said a question, and that is, you said those magical things have happened already from bringing that attitude, bringing that focus to the planning and already the conversations that you've been having. Is there any one that you'd like to share with us of these surprising, I couldn't have dreamed something better moments? Either one of you.
Oh, I'll jump in there because I see May on here, May Kessler, and she is she's asking about she's choreographing a dance for us, and we'll see that at play. A lot of the concepts are lived out in this group. So that whatever you see on the stage, it's a reflection, but unless you're a dancer or a choreographer, it's hard. And we'll have a Q&A session afterwards, but it was really reflective of this process of learning and tension. She's so funny. I was telling people about May. So I've had my foot halfway in the door, halfway out. Like, May, I want to be part of this. I don't know if I can commit. And so on Tuesday, she sends me a text message that, well, we're having a private session and you can show up today or tomorrow at this time. I was just laughing because it's looking at this in the whole. If in a different context, in a different relationship, someone sent me a message like that, they would be in big trouble. You don't. But she is my and she's my choreographer. And it's this when you're a dancer, it's you have this common goal and bond, and where our movement patterns might be different, or the choreographer wants us to move in different ways, but we have this melding of intentions, and it's an expression of life and movement and these forces together as a community. And so that text message, it was so funny, it really melded. It's like, okay, now you are all the way in, there's no backing out. And then Laura Bergman is in our dance troupe, and yesterday she said, your dancing is really different today. We had our rehearsal yesterday. Yeah, and it was reflective of the months of rehearsals, of intention, of state, and the community where Ann Willett, every time I show up and said, I'm halfway out. No, you're not. May saying, no, you're not. Give and pull, and it's alive, and it's a tensional structure that really is manifest, and that is just one magical element of this Congress. And I speak from a dancer point of view, so I don't know if everyone quite can feel, and I'm quite capturing the magic that I feel every time I get to rehearse and dance with me.
And that's one of the things about art, as in all things, is it can be understood on different levels and really invites the emotional resonance into it. Now, with that, I've asked May to open up her video camera. May, I'm wondering if you could be really succinct and maybe give you just 1, 2, 3 sentences to let people know a little bit more about this before we move on, since we have you here.
Yeah, oh my God. Tina, thank you so much for those words. Beautiful. But I totally agree with Tina. That's what's happening in the group is the magic. The creating of this dance is expanding our whole world so much more than, like the performance is the end, but the process, what I'm loving is that the process is teaching us. And I wrote there in the questions, what I'm trying to do with the choreography is not just make a dance to match the music, obviously, but I'm trying to make every phrase have biotensegral meaning. You may not see it, you may not know, but that's the process for us as dancers that we are trying to communicate that, and then maybe you go back and look at it again and wait, there they were showing some tensional elements, they were showing some compression, there they were showing some of the gliding, or so in every part of the dance, I'm trying to use a different aspect that I understand or don't understand, and then I want to explore more about how fascia moves within us, both as individual dancers. Oops.
Uh-oh, we've lost her.
Out.
Oh, you're okay. You're back again. Good.
We are not
Maybe we've lost you, so we're going to move on. I just want to say that one of the things that May brought up about the importance of the process, I think it's the same for all of those research, the studies that are going on, our own explorations in our body, in our learning. The process is of utmost importance. Okay, go ahead, Bruna.
Yeah, and we feel that in our process too. Maybe I'm gonna invite Graham to respond the questions about forces. Can you jump in, Graham?
Was that the question?
Chris, can you read it for
Yeah,
me?
so the question I've written in the chat, and it was about the source of these forces of tension and compression. And you wrote in the chat, Graham, did you want to respond for us?
The source of tension is cells. The cells produce, and they're active, they're metabolic units, and they produce a tension in the tissue surrounding them. And of course, muscles are the ones that generate the greatest amount of tension. And muscles are not on or off. They're always active all the time. They're continuously generating a low-grade tension, which is why when you cut the skin, the two sides fall apart because of that low-grade tension within the system. Does that answer?
What is saying?
Hang on, Neil, I'm going to mute you.
I have a bunch of options, but it doesn't say that on the.
Sorry about that, Graham. Can I just add to what Graham said? And that is, those of you who know me know that I love to make models. And the source of tension and compression, yes, we have it in biology, in organisms, but even crocheting, you have a certain pattern and different shapes just emerge depending on the pattern of development. Also with the origami that I do. And me being on the kinesthetic learning end of the scale, just doing this opens us up to a different sort of understanding because you see these things appear in your hands. And Graham, I know you really get into the models as well.
Yeah, I'll just say that once you produce a tension, you've automatically got compression because tension and compression are inseparable. So you've got those two opposing, I won't say opposing forces, two complementary forces acting together.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody want to respond to that? Well, I look through the chat for questions and comments.
I'm just going to jump in and say, when we're looking at, so I think part of the answer to the question, where does it come from, has to do with kind of the scale level at which you're looking at the system. So Graham's answer is looking at, the human body. And I'm tending myself to be more like pan biotensegral, all life forms for 4.5 billion years kind of thing. And we know that, for example, sponges don't have muscles. So their tension can't be coming from the muscles, So we have to also, but that's a much more, that's outside of the world of vertebrates and it's within animals, but I mean, there are organisms that are, slime molds, and biotensegrity is going to extend to all life forms, fungi, everything. So, and they don't have muscles. So it depends, some of it. And so that's why I tend to say you inherited your tenso-compressional characteristics because it's been passed down through the millennia to all living organisms. It's just a different kind of perspective level, not in disagreement with Graham, but sort of a different take on it. I hope that's okay, Graham.
Yeah, but ultimately it's cells, even sponges, jellyfish. Ultimately, it's something has to metabolize, and it's just what life does. It metabolizes and produces tension compressional forces inherently, like you say. It goes back millions of billions of years.
Thank you.
And every different perspective that you're all bringing paints a fuller picture, I believe. So we've got lots of questions in the chat that I'll slowly go through. Bob, I see yours is the first one. If you want to put your hand up and come up and speak to that, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll read it for you. But first off, we have George Roth here. George, I've been meaning to write you an email. I've had some great success with matrix repatterning, but that aside, I know you've got something to contribute to the conversation. So why don't you step up and share with us?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I know we keep coming back to this idea of muscle acting on bone and fascia and everything else, but you know, and it's the idea of metabolizing or living tissue, but tensegrity actually functions in dead tissue. I mean, if you look at things like you know, collagen self-organizing itself even in a non-living state. You see this is something they actually constructed, the Hindenburg, the big airships. And you know what, do you know what they used for that to contain helium? They used cow intestine, which they harvested over 2 years. I think they shut down the entire German sausage industry to build it. And all they did to create this structure is they cleaned the intestinal material, they flattened it out, they overlapped it by maybe 1/4 of an inch or so, completely self-sealed, reformed the molecular structure. So it's happening at a molecular and bioelectric level. This is inherent in all life. It's happening in water. It's happening in the universe. It's happening everywhere. This is quantum physics being expressed, you know? So we're an extension of that. So guys,
Yeah,
I
and
just
Jason,
encourage you to go beyond the muscle and fascia and all of this. It's happening at a very, very deep quantum level. Yeah, sorry. That's
I was just going to say, and Jason Rita is here. He is a wealth of information, and he's recently been sharing a research article on an inanimate material that self-heals. So maybe Jason will put that in the chat for us. Those of you who are here, you can always save the chat because it tends to be full of incredible links and such. Okay, anybody, any responses to George before we move on?
Maybe Bob.
I don't necessarily have a response to George, but I can ask my question if there. But you know, certainly, George, I agree completely. Is ending. First of all, I want to formally introduce myself to Tina. We had a chance to meet on Wednesday, but I was traveling and my signal was fading out, so I wanted to say hello. If you wanted to watch the video of that on Chris's embodied biotensegrity book club, it's a wealth of information. But my question was, you know, putting the science aside to fashion biotensegrity, what have you learned about each subject through your hands in clinical practice? Because I know for me, I'm a manual physical therapist as well, and I started studying biotensegrity because it explained what I was feeling in the patients that I was having, although everything else I had learned in school didn't. So I know we've read a lot of things, but what have you learned in clinical practice?
So is that for both Fabiana and me?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that it's an absolute essential component that you cannot affect one part without affecting the whole. And from, you know, just to speak from the hypermobility standpoint, I didn't say that to this group. I'm a hypermobility researcher. Inherently, it is in the extracellular matrix that the pathophysiology is affected. And one of the the funniest, that paper I presented with Alan Hakim there, he wrote back that it was just so compelling because Ellen Hakim is the EDS Society's medical director, and there's just so many of these us hypermobility researchers who try to have a unifying theory. And the problem that I see with that is that it's so reductionist. So if you come from your reductionist standpoint and say, hypermobility disorders they originate from collagen specific dysfunction. Well, that's one thing. If you say it's vascular in origin, okay, there you have it. It's completely musculoskeletal. All of that is reductionist. So then when you try to take into account the entire multi-system failure that occurs, including the immunologic system, you're hard pressed to make your argument. However, when you start to present the disorder from a more systems-based, holistic viewpoint, then things start to make a lot more sense. And so even treating the patients, not just physically watching things manifest, right? Like as Fabiana says, you put in the input and your output. Well, the patient's not crazy. That's the most common one I hear in allopathic medicine is everybody must be crazy or anxious. And that is, you just didn't get an output that you wanted. You were hoping for, but you didn't get it. And from that viewpoint, it's really the understanding. I study with Antonio Stecco, and he says, my father, and I agree with him, say that 40 to 50% of human knowledge or understanding of the human body has not been discovered. And my osteopathic teacher, Oline Adams, he says 99% of our understanding of the human body has yet to be discovered. I tend to agree with Oline. And so it's an exploration of every time we interface with a patient on what they're teaching us. So I would say I've learned an infinite amount and have an infinite amount to continue to learn.
Yeah, for me, it's quite the same because I'm usually with patients with a lot of complaints with anxiety, depression, and pain in a lot of parts of the body with a lot of issues. And I started to learn that we can't handle with a complex problem or question looking just through one pathway. And it's why we need to look in different directions with the same same goal. And I'm working with patients from 24 years now, and I have more questions than answers every day.
Yeah, just thank you. And just to follow up with that, one of Tina's comments is how many times have we heard in the clinic, you're working on my hip, so why am I feeling that in my shoulder? I must be crazy, or my doctor tells me I'm crazy. It's like, no, that's just your integrated system. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you. And I look forward to meeting both of you in New Orleans.
Yeah, Bob. And sometimes the patient, you are working with manual therapy at the hip, and the patient, I'm feeling here in my head, I'm crazy.
Right.
And I'm trying to explain this whole connection and the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, etc. And everything can be an answer.
Great. Thank you.
One more quick comment on this topic. It's interesting. I think that people here will tend to be very familiar with the spatial continuities. I've had some matrix repatterning sessions, and this is one of the things I wanted to connect with George about. And that is each time I've had a session, the response is non-linear time-wise as well. So there's the session, and then, you know, there can be changes, but about 6 days later, there's a sudden improvement. And then recently I've gone, you know, a couple of weeks, and then again in another week, there's another improvement. And yeah, I'm doing other explorations as well. So you can't say it's any one thing, but it's pretty exciting to feel that, just to realize, you know, my own ignorance in, oh, I wasn't watching for the time scale so much as beyond a couple of days. So that was a real learning for me.
Yeah, it can be the motivating of the fibroblasts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, and not just this, the autonomic nervous system too, and other things that maybe we don't know yet.
You know, I think you're right, this great mystery, and listening to all of you talk about, I am not a therapist. I don't treat other people. And although I taught yoga for many years, I'm no longer teaching. So it's really this is my laboratory. And one of the things that really stood out for me when I was listening to you is, in order to work this way, there has to be a sense of humility. If a person who needs to have all the answers, I don't think is going to be able to hold the vastness and set aside that need, you know, that can sometimes be driven by ego, to actually hear the response of the system and systems. Yeah. So thank you all for doing that. I know as a receiver of both manual therapy, I'm really picky as to who I want to treat me. Do you want to say something, Bruna? It looks like you're ready to say something.
Because when Bob started to talk, for me, I had a moment last year. I went to a dissection, and before I went, I talked a lot with my my PT, BiotensegriTea PT pals, and Mariana always said to me, when you arrive in the body, let the body talk to you. And we always learn about that when we talk about manual therapy. So I touch my client and I allow the body tell me what they need, but we had something always in the mind that we need a right way to do something. And this is all about the methods and something that we learn. And when I start to dissect, I decide to go with my hands. So I use the I don't know the name, the history, I don't know, to just invite and open the first layer of the tissue, and I put my hands. And in my idea, I really was, I want to see the whole pelvis because it's related with my PAG. And then I put my hands and start to open in a different way. And all the 9 days I was in the lab, it's always like I put my hands and the body was invited to open and see possibilities, and was very powerful for me to use that in my daily life, not only in the touch, but also in the movement, because we try to, you need to do that movement to assess this thing. And now maybe I can just invite them and give some tools to the body, and the body go to the pathway that they needed. So very nice, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm mindful of time, and I know Fabiana has a hard stop on the half hour. I have a question here that's in the chat that I'm going to read to you, but I would like any of our audience who has a burning question for Fabiana to write it in the chat and start with 3 exclamation marks. And then Susan, maybe you can keep track of that and forward that question, that person for us before Fabiana has to leave. But first, this is a question from Jason Rita. And Jason, I'm going to read it for everyone, but if you decide you want to come up, just open up your camera, and I think Susan or Graham will see it and spotlight you. So that option is there if I'm making presumptions. So he says, Chris and the other speaker refer to the fascia world and the biotensegrity world, or use the language of different communities. So in the fascia world or the fascia community, there is a lot of rejection or opposition, or excuse me, that's a question. Is there a lot of rejection or opposition or lack of interest in biotensegrity as a concept or law of nature, its significance and implications? Or don't see it as the paradigm shift it represents in structure, function, meaning, in the same way that the biotensegrity world does. I think you're on to something here, Jason. And then he asks, where does any such rejection or opposition come from? Is it a problem of awareness, language, or other? I think this is such an interesting question, Jason. So I open the floor to anybody here who wants to respond.
Can I jump in? I think this speaks to that compression and tension, these elements. So in any system, there's these tensional elements. And so I think conflict, rejection, all of that is part of these tensional and compressive elements. So that it's just natural. Even in a family unit that's very close-knit, there will be these type of relationships. And then where I see systems where it's healthy is when the system as a whole is healthy. So I'll give you an example. I study Vini Yoga, and I study with the Yoga Well. And the people who arrive there are all in different stages of searching. So there's space held for that. So when you see somebody acting out, for lack of a better term, you were able to hold space. This person is in deep transformation, really in deep questioning of their assumptions and who they are. Other times you'll see somebody who is having a lot more misperception. So they introduce that into the system. But because the system as a whole is healthy, we're able to absorb that, process that, even ask ourselves, why am I responding that way to a false statement? That's a healthy system. So in an unhealthy system, like a lot of our patients who show up, a lot of what it should naturally be there then can become destructive. And in osteopathy, my teacher, we always call the lesion has more health in it than it does have pathology. There's more health in the lesion than not. And so we're asked to find the health in the pathology in the lesion itself, and not to stare at what is imbalanced, but to find where it lives in the whole. And so I know that's a really philosophical approach to that question, but it is how I see the world. So that, oh yeah, conflict will arise and people will reject, and whether or not where that comes from is a natural state of the system. And then within the individual or groups, there often are a lot of different motivations, and it's the exploration of those motivations that give us the answers on how to make the whole exist in harmony.
Beautiful, beautiful. Makes for a better world too. Fabiana, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I was reading the question, and I talked it like this: the fascia community, the biotensegrity community, and we need to think that people that are from biointegrity community or that likes to study and try to understand, they don't necessarily agree that it's or started this because of fascia. And the other way is true. And so some people started to study fascia and they don't know nothing about biointegrity. And so we are not looking to the same point. No, not necessarily. And it was just to differentiate like the background or when people started, and maybe we can find a common point or not. We need to start to work together and discuss, and because people can't people can disagree or looking in a different perspective, and there is no problem in this. It's more a way to talk about different backgrounds. It's not a nothing more. It's not nothing more.
Okay, Bruna, do you want to add anything?
I was thinking, in the end of the day, we are talking about body, and we are talking about if I work with patients and stuff, and every time we have the opportunity to different people researching in a different fields can be good for us. So I think it is very important that there is a strong archive who think about the biotensegrity perspective. But I think it is very important that there is people studying about all the things that fascia can bring to us. And in my daily life and in my practice, I always think about a fusion, not in two science become one, but how the lens of biotensegrity give me the opportunity to understand better of the idea of the webby fascia that can bring to us. So I think it is a lot of things that can be separate this, and language can be one, but I think ego is other way can.
Yeah, thank you. Oh dear, my something just happened to my chat. Here it is. Okay, so I know you've got to leave in 6 minutes, Fabiana. I'm going to focus on you for these last 6 minutes, or these of your stay with us here. I had a question from Alex around, or a comment. I can't find it now. It didn't have the 3 exclamation marks, Alex. So
To find as
if it is
well.
thank you. If it's a direct question for Fabiana, please let us see you by opening up your video, and then we'll let you ask it.
Chris, Alex said he'd rather D.Dan go ahead.
Oh, thank you for that. Susan, can you read the question, or D.Dan, can you come on up and ask it? I can't find the question now. It's like, oh, here it is.
A lot of things in the chat.
So this is Dan's question. Will FRS explain why massage, rolfing, yoga activate hyaluronidase to cleave hyaluron in aggregate stiffness fibrosis towards homeostasis? If not, I'd like to share. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No, probably at the Congress, yes, and we have some research published about it in a specific way to think and try to explain the things. But I don't know if you want to jump in, please.
Tina, do you want to say anything? And Dan, if you're here, do you want to open your camera? Maybe Dan doesn't want to be on on YouTube. Not sure.
When we are talking about complexity and when we are trying to explain everything just thinking in hyaluronic acid aggregation, for me is not the point. And when we have, because we can have people with injury, we can have people with aggregation, with fibrosis and etc. And these people, maybe they don't have pain. Maybe they don't have issues. So it's not a 1 + 1 equal 2, in my point of view. For some people, yes, this can be the reason, but for others, no. So it's why I started saying that for everyone, there is a specificity or something particular that brings the person to the complaints that they have. And not just physical, not just in mind, maybe both. Yeah, it's a challenge for the practitioner and for the patient too.
Thank you, Fabiana. Tina, do you want to add something quickly before I give Fabiana her last question?
We'll give her her last question. I can answer.
Okay, thanks for holding on. Okay, so this is from Kutu, Maria Gomez, who writes, thank you all for this incredible conversation amongst such a multidisciplinary team. As a research student, I feel there's still a big need for an advisory research panel for new students to go to. Do you think this is something that could be discussed as a possibility in the near future?
Yeah, we are thinking on this. We have ideas and to give more support for the students and for people that just are new at the professions of physio or other professions that are working on the field of fascia or biotensegrity or both. And there is a plan from us that we will start to support the students. And Tina is organizing to a scholarship. Can you explain a little bit, Tina, about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am chair of membership committee. So we are starting to plan for these different initiatives. Our hope is to kick off at the Congress. So I hope to see you all there so you can meet each other and we can meet each other in person. And that's where a lot of these initiatives will start. One of the ways we are starting is with, I know Fabiana has to leave. Do you want to do any last goodbyes and then I can
handle for Mark. You can answer.
Okay. Yeah, so Kira DeConnick is super committed to education. And so she's hosting a couple of workshops on research. She will continue to host these going forward. She has an amazing education program. So that's not quite membership. It is education committee where she's chair, but we all work collaboratively together. So that is definitely coming soon to not just support students but also younger researchers, established researchers to help put them in contact with emerging young researchers. And we do have a few scholarships available for people in need and students who are looking for assistance with coming to the Congress. And you can email info@fasciaresearchsociety.org if you're interested in applying. We have an application process and we'll send you the information.
I've also put the links to both the FRSC site and the Congress site in the chat for people who want to, I'm sure they can find contact info there as well. Yes. So before we move on, Fabiana, thank you. We're so glad you could join us, and what a great conversation. I can't wait.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. It's like a dream come true to be here, to share ideas, and to be so welcome from you. And thank you, thank you. I'm glad to be with you at the Congress.
It's our pleasure. I can't wait to be together in real life.
Yeah.
I see in the chat there that link doesn't work. Thank you, Tina, for sending the right link. Sorry, I found the wrong one. I can't wait to see you, Fabiana, in person. Have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful weekend. If anybody wants to quickly open up their camera and wave bye to Tina, excuse me, Fabi, now is the time. Such a great conversation. I'm just really so excited about what's happening now for these communities coming together and seeing what emerges. Go ahead, Bruna.
Yeah, I think it is very amazing. I'm so excited when I saw the program of the Congress. For me was, wow, so many, I see so many changes, and we talk about a lot of how was in Montreal and how we were feeling like something was missing. And when I see the program, it is the sense of, okay, I really want to go. And it is very good to have this feeling to not be because it is a Congress, but we really want to go and talk to the people and do the workshops, the presentations. I'm looking for so many teams. I have a lot of check that places that I really want to see, and it's so excited. We are so excited.
Yeah, we are really happy because in Montreal, a lot of people talked with me, and as you talked, we talked with each other, Bruna, and bring back this feeling of community, feeling of being excited to be there, to meet people, to not closing the doors, and try to understand and learn how to agree to disagree, right? In this, it's the part two, but to open the doors, have this spirit of working together, and that's it.
Oh, Bruna just disappeared off of my screen.
Yeah, everybody, I think. You too, Chris.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure. Oh, here we go, everybody. Thank you, Fabiana. And
Thank you, dear.
we'll see you soon. 2 months
Yeah.
is very close. Before we move on, I just want
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
thank you. Hi, Camilla. Before we move on, I just want to let people who are here know that I've put a link in the chat for those of us in the Biotensegrity community that want to hang out, that want to have a connection point. When we're in New Orleans, we'll probably go out for dinner and, continue the conversation even beyond the lectures and presentations. You could add your info there. I'm going to start a WhatsApp group. And Tina, I know there was a question here that you were ready to respond to. Do you want to respond now, or do I need to find the question again?
I remember it. I've been taking notes.
I remember.
So the question was about hyaluronidase and the different interventions. And I think this question is really, really poignant, really interesting as it fits into the whole. It really reflects these two hats that I wear. So as a researcher, and then as some people hate this term, but as a practitioner, healer. I don't even want to say clinician because it's reductionist. So it's someone who facilitates healing versus research and allopathic medicine. And even allopathic medicine, I would argue, doesn't quite embody that dichotomy. And it's this balance of two worlds that I know all of us here are trying to share and understand. Is how do they interrelate? And I get this question a lot. I'm answering a different question because it answers this one. Is how then do you balance coming in and listening, laying hands, and not knowing where you're going to go because the system takes you there? And then okay, what am I going to use yoga today? Am I going, for me, my needle, my injectate, my force application to get this response from the hyaluronin and the hyaluronidase and whatever cellular fasciablast I would like to, fasciocide I would like to induce. And it is not a clear answer. And that is one of the mysteries of life. And I'll take off that hat, and then here I am looking at putting in one input into the system, judging research, saying you're good enough, you're not good enough. Let's schedule you from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sit there and don't complain. To what is alive in this whole. And I get this question a lot, and no, I don't have a clear answer. And the only answer that I have for people is you have to see what works for you. You show up, you listen to the research, and yet the Congress itself is alive and the people there are alive, and you interact and some kind of magic happens. And yes, you sit there and you take notes and you look things up and you study and you read the papers and you ask. And then you lie there in a half, not comatose, but a reflective state, and things digest and meld, and you go to a nice dinner with your group and some magic happens, something happens. And so I don't think that was the answer that he was looking for, but it's the answer I have.
Anybody want to respond to this? Okay, thank you. I believe Alejandro is next. Did you want to come on up and ask your question? Yes, here we go. Hi.
Hello.
Several tea parties now. It's great that you keep coming back and ask such great questions.
I appreciate hosting the space. It's been very valuable for me. And also life has kind of thrown me into this research recently. So again, thank you for hosting everything. I wanted to actually touch upon Tina's question earlier with regards to tension and compression. And I guess just for those that haven't seen me before, I'm a massage therapist. I don't really practice because I got other things going on in my life, but my education is in philosophy and psychology. So when you asked the question about source of this tension and compression phenomenon, I was wondering if you mean that question to be framed in more of an empirical setting or more in an ontological setting, like the actual structure of reality. Because I believe Fuller does propose or make a claim as to what is the source of this whole tensegrity structure and geometry is basically two principles. The one is energy efficiency, and the other one is spatial constraint, which is the one I find most interesting because I think that's the one that kind of shows us moving away from like the Euclidean geometry to this whole non-Euclidean geodesic geometry. But I'm just curious if what angle were you approaching that question?
Both.
Cool.
Because they inform each other.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think as much as scientists like to kind of shoo away philosophy, they're somehow always trapped in it. And earlier you mentioned with regards to this whole idea of a science of experience, I wanted to see if you're familiar with early 20th century philosopher Edmund Husserl, who he'd kind of developed this whole phenomenology aspect, which I think kind of aligns with a lot of what you're talking, and also with regards to like your movement practice and like that whole moment of like being in the zone. So I guess it was more of a comment than a question.
Yeah, Yap talks about that quite a bit in his work too, of phenomenology. And I review research as well, and you'd be surprised on the research that comes out based on phenomenological approaches as well. It's very
Cool.
it's more, I have a social science background, undergraduate degree, so it's a mixed background too. And it I think reflects I think the philosophical questions that we do have to ask even as scientists.
Mm-hmm. And this field of fossil research, where do you see, because I still see like it's still kind of contained towards the medical practitioner and biologists and very niche group of biologists at this moment. Do you see some engagement with philosophers or other areas of study kind of starting to dip their toes into fascia?
Yeah, that's the conflict that we were all alluding to. So the more time you spend amongst these fascia researchers, fascia group, fascia research society, you start to see that they actually do exist in there. And I see our role with FRS and the leadership is to not to meld voices, but to create a healthy system where these ideas can be exchanged and can coexist and inform each other. And it is, as this field emerges, it's an emerging field over the last 10, 15 years. That's the challenge.
Mm.
Is that there is a tendency with what Bruna said with ego, that you want to silence somebody else's voice because yours in existence is you see as more important, more legitimate. And I see our job on the board and as leadership in the society is to bring voices together so that something magical that cannot be envisioned by our limited human brains can emerge. A healthy system that allows all voices to exist and to then form something that arises.
Wonderful. Exciting. Well, thank you again for organizing everything. Really looking forward to what comes out of it all. Thank you.
Bruna, anything?
Just said beautiful. It is beautiful. Thank you, Tina.
It's so very exciting to see, how far things are coming in the direction that is unfolding. Steve, I know you were at the Congress in 2015. That was where I met you for the first time. I feel things have been changing, but I wasn't as, that was my first dipping my toe into things. I'm curious to hear your reflections after today's conversation.
Yeah, well, that was my last time I went to the Fashion Congress because I just found it so repetitive and so going over the same old stuff and not moving at all. And I'm glad to see that it's finally moving along. But I missed the first one, but up until that 2015 one, I was at every one of them, and they were all exactly the same. They all follow the same thing, and they were all very reductionistic. And the fascia is still, as far as they were concerned, layers and very reductionistic concept. I looked at the list of speakers that are coming up for this coming Congress, and 2/3 of them are the same speakers that spoke at the first or second Congress. So I don't see any, at least I haven't seen that change that you're talking about yet. I would like to see that. I was hanging around all those conferences, never got invited to speak at any of them. Although at one of them, I was actually given the award for something or other for the Rolfing Association, but I never got to speak at any of them. They never had any biotensegrity persons talk, and I see a change and I'm glad of it. Let's see if we can move it along.
Yeah, no, thank you for that feedback. Thank you for chiming in. That is definitely exactly what you're speaking to, right? So you see the change, and yet you also see where things are the same. And that is what we're trying to instill is voices at the table. What does reimagination look like for the system as this new leadership starts to bring more voices in? And we're still in the really beginning stages of that. The Congress is not fully reflective because it is the groundwork was left over from the prior boards. And so this board has come in working hard over the last 6 months, 5 months really, to reimagine what this could look like with what we're given.
Well, the latest paper from the fascia group has been, again, the same kind of layer things and very reductionistic. And that's some of the same group that's out there right now. And it's interesting, every once in a while they'll throw in the word biotensegrity, but they seem to have no concept of what it implies. That just saying it implies that everything they've been doing before is wrong. That you can't think of it in layers as they do. And so the problem is still there, very much there, I see. And it's going to be tough work for you guys to get it straightened out.
Yeah, so to clarify, that paper does not belong to the society. And
Right.
it's not a society hardline. It is a group of individuals that are members of the society. But it is definitely not a society paper and is not an official society working group that came out with the paper, to make it very, very clear.
Tina, when we met together with Susan last month, I seem to recall there was a conversation about wanting to delve forward on what is fascia. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes. So that it's been so challenging. It's been really challenging, and I can touch upon Susan's question too. There is change in leadership. It's not all completely new people, but there are many, 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 many new people and shift in executive leadership. So the executive team, the folks who actually do the work, is completely different. And it is now very much boards hands-on. We do all the work, and that's been in the last 5 months, as opposed to a management team or an executive director who may or may not be in the field or is aware of the nuances and politics in the field. And because of this hands-on nature with Fabiana, Kira, me, really rolling up our sleeves and getting to work, we've delved into the history of fascia nomenclature. And it is extremely challenging. It is about bringing these voices together. And how do you make a whole arise out of so many disparate voices? Mm-hmm. So I can very strongly say that this is the direction we're moving in. What it's going to look like is very questionable, because we do have what Bruna talked about. And I don't want to reduce it to saying so my ego does want to reduce it and say it's all ego. And I, as a spiritual person, spiritual being in this human body wants there to be more.
Mm.
Really seek to understand how do we create a whole out of so many voices that are disparate. I don't even want to use the word in opposition because I don't want to emphasize that. I want to start to emphasize how do we create a whole. And it's extremely challenging. And that's also what you're seeing in the Congress makeup is how do we start to bring it's not even bringing them together, but how do we make a whole arise from such disparate voices? And it's so challenging. And it is something that we are willing to tackle head on. And I can't promise results. I can only promise that we are working hard towards that.
Well, biotensegrity is a paradigm shift, and you have to give up one to take the other. You can't combine them. And I think that's something we have to recognize. You have to either accept one or the other, so that there's a point where, as a group or a society or whatever you're going to call it, you have to recognize that you either have to make that paradigm shift or stay in the world that you are. You can't put them together. They don't work together. You can't mix, you can't mix those metaphors.
So one of the things that we're going to be doing on the book club with the Trailblazers group is to get together and have this discussion on what is fascia in the beginning of July. Steve, you're welcome to come. Tina, you're welcome to come. Shoot me an email if you want to. I will extend an invitation also to Yap and Jean-Claude Gimberto, mostly because it will be our voices. There's people, Bob, you'll be there, I'm sure, Bruna. Our voices, if we can have this conversation ahead of time in preparation for the conversations that are going to be happening in New Orleans, I think that would really be generative for us and hopefully help us come to the conversation in a way that is clear and here's our position, even though it may vary amongst all of us, but also supportive of the greater system of the whole that, I'm probably not even aware completely what that means. But Steve, you're welcome to come. Tina, you're welcome to come. I know you're busy, but we would love to have you there.
All right, I've taken the spotlights off. If we're ready we're almost at 2 hours here.
We're almost at 2 hours, I guess. I know, yeah, I think there are more questions in the chat, but we should be rounding it up. One was, I think May and Dan were having a conversation. Not sure if it was for the group or just
Yeah, I don't think we have any other.
Okay, great. Thank you for
We can just say last call. If you have a question, unmute now.
And Bruna, will you take over the facilitation? I'm going to look for the link to our survey for anybody who, thank you.
Just a second.
So are you looking for the link or are you going to take over the facilitation?
I'm looking for the link.
Okay, so thanks, Bruna.
I have here. Okay.
Bruna, Nuno, and I are in the process of organizing a little big in Portugal in September. And as you've all heard from Susan, we haven't talked about it today, but we have in the past. We'll be celebrating 50 years of biotensegrity also in September, and with a hybrid biotensegrity party. So Bruna's finding a link. Bruna, I can do that. I know where it is. It's easy for me to find. I'm going to pass the baton to Susan while I find it.
Jason is asking, is there an organized database of fascia research by taxonomy that you know of, Tina?
No, but if you're interested in starting one, we would be happy to support the initiative.
Perfect answer.
Yes, exactly. And I think we're almost ready for a closing toast. I don't want to rush things, but if we have no more questions or comments, last chance if anybody wants to say anything. I have to say, I'm very energized after seeing kind of how things have been going over the last, I don't know, 10 to 15 years. This is an exciting turn, I think, that the Fascia Research Society is, actually kind of reaching out and saying, okay, how can we work together? So I think that the archive is always happy to give, educational support and that sort of thing. And so to me, it's very exciting.
To me as well, and I'm ever grateful that you guys are stepping up to do this huge, really to manifest a change. It's very exciting. Thank you, thank you, thank
If you want to turn on cameras, if you want to do the toast with us, you can. You don't have to.
So Tina's going to give the toast.
All right. Well, I've been furiously taking notes, so here we go. So thank you to having this wonderful and fascinating world of biotensegrity and having the insightful discussions we've shared today. Thank you, Chris, for hosting us and bringing us all together to actively participate with these thought-provoking questions. And thank you so much for today, these 2 hours, allowing us to all dive and delve into this intricate world of tension and compression that shapes our bodies and informs our world, our minds, and this community. As we move forward, may we continue to explore and apply these principles for deeper understanding and appreciation of the interconnectedness of our lives. And may we continue to learn and collaborate and grow together. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Lovely.